Hi everybody and welcome to Bless Central. If it's your first time visiting this channel, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button. Check out our channel of the whole series of the Fruit of the Spirits and previous seasons too. Stay tuned and be blessed. So this week's theme is self-control, and it is the last in this series of the Fruit of the Spirit of the Nine. And with self-control in the King James version, at least, the word there is used temperance, and when you actually look at the root word of what temperance means, it means inkratia, which means self-control, to have mastery over, control over, disciplined, or to have dominion over. And earlier this year, I did a video which was called Discipline for Dominion, and which kind of sums up self-control, but gives a different perspective. So I'd encourage you to look on the channel and to watch that video. I'd watch it myself the other day as well. So when we look at self-control, and we even look at it from the English dictionary perspective, it literally is the ability to control oneself, in particular one's emotions and desires, especially in difficult situations. And as the English dictionary states it says it's especially having this ability in difficult situations. And if you've been watching all the way through the different videos I've been doing for the fruit of the Spirit, one thing I've been talking about is where the Bible said that we are to produce fruit, but fruit that remains. So not just producing fruit in the good times, but especially in the bad times. And the English dictionary kind of solidifies what I was saying as well. As mentioned in previous videos that I've done, that when we compare something like self-control and you compare it to something like motivation, they're two different things. Motivation is when you're motivated or you've got this feeling or you're in the mood to do something. But self-control is the ability to go above and beyond what you feel, or whether you're in the mood or not. It's the ability to still carry the act out. So as a natural example, a few months ago, a few months ago, I started bike riding, and it was, when you do something for the first time, it's really exciting, it's brand new, and I was really motivated to get out there and ride my bike, etc., etc. And after a while, I think the honeymoon period was done, and the motivations went, to be fair, and I wasn't motivated. I didn't feel like it, wasn't in the mood to do it, and that's what motivation is. But when we talk about self-control is the fact that I don't feel like going out, but I'm going to do it. I'm not in the mood to go and ride on a bike, but I'm going to do it. It's cold outside, but I'm going to do it. It's raining a bit, but I'm going to do it because I have self-control over my desires and over my emotions, and I'm still going to do what I'm meant to do. So that is the big difference between self-control and motivation. And when we're in church and we think about a lack of self-control, most traditional church people would think about a lack of self-control and they almost tie it to sex or tie it to adultery or fornication, and think about people like David with Bathsheba, or even Reuben when he slept with Jacob's concubine. But self-control is more than just looking at it from a sexual desire point of view. We don't really think about health or overeating when it comes to self-control. We don't really think about anger or wrath or bitterness and having control over our own emotions. We don't really think about addictions like online shopping and when we have bad spending habits that lead to debt, but that's a lack of self-control. We don't really think about minding our own words, and we don't think about what we say before we speak, but we're happy to say things to people knowing that once we say certain things to people, you can never take them back. We don't really think about our environments and the people we spend time with, and having control about what we allow to be in our environment and what we allow our ears to take in. We don't really think about these things, but they're just as important. And when we think about God, there's no big sins and little sins. You don't get less points or less punishment for sinning when you fornicate than when you have less control when it comes to your environment and gossiping. Sin is sin. It's not like on earth where you can get 26 years plus or life for murder, but you can get probation for petty theft. Sin is sin. That's the fact. And we need self-control in all areas of our life to not sin or break, as Jesus said, the commandment or the laws in one or more areas. It's self-control all over. It doesn't matter who you are, unless you're perfect. And if you're perfect, you can go now. But unless you're perfect, everyone has an area in life where they lack self-controlling. The funny thing about self-control when you look at different people is what I find difficult may be easy for you, and vice versa. What I find easy, like I don't have a lack of self-control and have this big urgent desire for, and temptation to gamble. It's not really me, but other people would find that, if that makes sense. It's different struggles for different people in different areas, but it all requires a level of self-control. And I believe sometimes when it comes to self-control, in what area that you particularly struggle with or have a weakness in, I believe that it takes God to help you in that area, to either give you the strength to give you that self-control, or to make a way of escape, to escape from the temptation that you're facing. Jesus said that he's the vine and that we are the branches, and we cannot produce fruit without him. So if a part of the fruit is self-control, what Jesus is saying is that I'm the vine and you're the branches, and you can't produce self-control in particular areas of your life without me. It's going to take my strength in you. So when you do feel weak, and when your self-control is running out in your own strength, that's when my strength will be perfected in your weakness. So in certain elements, we need God. You know, the Bible speaks about the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul was given a thorn in the flesh. There's a quick background and a bit of context. He went to heaven and he saw things that men weren't meant to see, and he heard things that men weren't meant to speak. And the Apostle Paul says, lest I should be exalted above who I am, because of the revelations he's received. He goes that a thorn in the flesh was given to him, that every time he wanted to say something or speak about what he experienced, the thorn in the flesh would stop him. And some people say that thorn in the flesh was a cataract in the eye. So every time he wanted to say something, this thing would bother him. And in essence, this thing was given to him to give him a level of self-control, that every time he couldn't control himself and he wanted to speak or tell people what he'd experienced, this thing came in to help him keep his mouth shut, basically. And the Bible said that Paul went to God 3 times, and he said, I besought the Lord 3 times about it. He said, God, can you remove this? And God says, no. So sometimes in life, it takes an intervention from God, whether God allows something to come into your life, or whether God puts something directly himself into your life to give you an element of self-control, because God knows that, or God knew that with the Apostle Paul, that without this thing in his life, he wouldn't have enough self-control not to become exalted, become prideful. So he allowed this to happen. In fact, the fact of the matter is that we do need God for self-control, especially when it comes to temptation. The Lord's Prayer says, lead us not into temptation. So when God is leading us, any temptation that we face is a temptation that we can overcome, or that's going to help us grow in an area, or develop us, because God leads us that way. But when he's not leading us, we can end up facing temptations that we're not meant to face, and ultimately be in a position where we're going to lack the self-control, because maybe we're not ready to face this level of temptation right now because we're only here. So God knows what we can handle. And you know, we see this with David. David was out of position. He was in a position where he was not meant to be, and all the men were at war. And David was on his rooftop. And because he was not led by where he should be according to his position, he saw things that he should not have seen. As we know, we saw Bathsheba bathing, and she was naked. And immediately, any self-control that he had in his body at that moment automatically went away. And that's exactly the same with us. When we're out of position, when we're not where we need to be, when we're not led by God, we're in a position now where we're going to see things or be faced with things that we're not meant to face. Maybe not right now, maybe in the future, but we're not meant to face right now. And we're in a position where we're going to run out of self-control. And because God's not leading us, the Bible said that when we face temptation, that God himself will make a way of escape. But when God's not leading us, He's not leading us from temptation. And we're in a situation because God's not leading us, we're not following Him. When God makes a way of escape, how are you meant to follow and go to that way of escape when you're not being led by God? How's God meant to lead you to a way of escape when you're not following Him in the first place? We need God for self-control and in certain places even to escape the temptation in the first place, which is wisdom. As mentioned earlier, self-control is not like motivation. It's not a feeling that you get. Self-control is a decision that you choose to make. You're not gonna get tempted and get this warm, fuzzy feeling inside and think, oh, now I've got self-control, now I can overcome this. It doesn't work that way. It's just a fact of you making the decision to have self-control to either go through or to walk away. In fact, self-control in temptation is like when the children of Israel crossed Jordan. Now we know when the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea opened first and then they were able to walk through. But with the crossing of the Jordan, they had to make the decision to step out in faith. And as they stepped out, only when they stepped out that the water began to move away. And it's the same when it comes to self-control. Once you make the decision to do certain things, whether it's to walk away from temptation or it's a decision to do the right thing, as you make the decision, as you step out in faith, God will give you the self-control and God will give you the strength to do the things that you need to do or to walk away from the thing that you're not meant to do. So we have to make the decision to walk away from temptation. We can't entertain the temptation. You have to make a decision just to walk away. Because if we're in a position where we're entertaining it, this is where we become double-minded and we can fall into sin. It's like this. If the devil sends you a letter, don't entertain it. You know the letters come from the devil. Throw the letter away. Don't open it and consider it and look at it, because the more you entertain it, the more it's going to mess up your mind, the more you're going to become double-minded, the more you're going to fall into sin. And we see this with Eve in the Bible. When the devil or when the serpent spoke to Eve, she should have dismissed him straight away, but she entertained the conversation to the point where he said, well, did God say you cannot eat? And then she began to become confused and become entangled, and then it fell into her sinning. And if there's any advice I give you when it comes to self-control, don't even entertain it. Just like David on the rooftop looking at Bathsheba, once you see it, don't entertain it and walk away, because the more you look at it, the more you stare at it, is the more you're going to fall into it and then ultimately fall into sin. When you have an element of self-control and you produce self-control, you understand that all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. In other words, not everything is a sin, but just because something's not a sin doesn't mean it's good for you, if that makes sense. So some people like to live on the edge where something's technically not a sin, and again, going back to the entertaining of it, and because they entertain it and entertain it, it ultimately will lead to a temptation and ultimately will lead to sinning. So you know you struggle in a certain area, or you struggle with certain things, or you struggle when you see certain things, don't put yourself in that position. It's not a sin to see certain things. It's not a sin to be in certain environments, but being in certain environments is not going to be good for you, and ultimately it's going to lead to you messing up and sinning. So when you have an element of self-control, you know that all things are lawful, but not all things are good for me. So you have to turn down certain invitations, and you can't watch certain things on TV, or you can't be around certain people, because you know ultimately it's going to lead to sin. One thing about self-control as well, it's not just about negative things. We always think about self-control not to do this, self-control not to smoke, self-control not to lie, self-control not to cheat, giving me control that I don't do these things. But it's also self-control to do positive things too. It's self-control to love. It's self-control to act right. It's self-control to produce fruit and to produce the fruit of the Spirit. In fact, when we look back in the other 8 aspects of the fruit of the Spirit over the last 8 weeks or 9 weeks, we literally need self-control to make the decision to produce fruit, and not only to produce the fruit and have the self-control to produce fruit in good times, but we need self-control to produce fruit, especially in the bad times. We need self-control not only to obtain certain things in life, but we need self-control to maintain what we have just obtained. Whatever it took for you to get something, that's what it's going to take for you to keep it and to maintain it. If you think about someone who's got a beach body, as we're now in summer, it takes a level of self-control to get a beach body. It's a level of self-control in your diet and your nutrition, and a level in self-control in terms of your exercising and going to the gym. Now, once you get the beach body, it's not over. You've obtained your beach body, but if you want to maintain that and keep that beach body, you've got to do the exact same thing and have the same level of self-control that you had to get from what do you call it, a dad's body or dad's bod to your beach bod. So you got to maintain that nutrition, that diet, and you got to maintain your strict timetable in terms of going to the gym. Because if you lose self-control, you will lose your body. And it's the same thing when it comes to most things in life. We need self-control, not just to get things, but we need self-control to help maintain us in aspects of our life, especially when it comes to the kingdom of God. We are now in the last days, and Jesus is definitely coming back. So, when he comes back, he's going to take the church out of the church. He's going to separate the wheat from the tares. And when we look at both of these groups of people, the church out of the church and the wheat from the tares, the difference in both sets of people is that one set of people will produce the fruit of the Spirit, and the other set of people will not produce the fruit of the Spirit. It's as simple as that. Jesus says that it's by their fruits you will know them. He said that many shall come to me in that day and say, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not cast out demons in your name? Did we not perform many miracles in your name? He says, depart from me, workers of iniquity, I never knew you. And he said that this is the reality. When you know God or have intimacy with him, the same way that a man and a woman after intimacy produce the fruit of the loins or the fruit of the womb, which is a baby, when we're intimate with God, we produce the fruit of the Spirit. Wherefore, it's by their fruit you're going to know them. Those that are intimate with God, those that truly know God, you will know them by their fruit. Because if you're not producing fruit, you don't know God. You cannot know God. You cannot have intimacy with God but not have any fruit. It can't work. You can't become pregnant before first having intimacy, unless you're doing some kind of IVF. But outside of that, and obviously the Immaculate Conception, but that's a one-off. But outside of that, it can't work. And this is the reality. Without being connected to God, we cannot be the people or the person that we're meant to be. And consequently, we cannot do the things in life that we're meant and we're called to do. It's like without God, God wanted us, for example, to be a heart surgeon. But you cannot become a heart surgeon without God. Can't do it. And because you're not a heart surgeon, your role as a heart surgeon is to perform surgeries on people. So consequently, you're not able to perform surgery on people. So there's many people that are dying because there's a gap missing because you're not where you're meant to be. So without God, we cannot become the people we're meant to be. And consequently, we cannot do the things we're meant to do. We cannot produce fruit without God continuously. Not the self-control, but all the fruit. We cannot produce fruit without God continuously, especially when we face tests and trials. So as we end this series right now, I'd encourage you to literally just, as the Bible says, let a man examine himself and say to yourself, like, do I have the fruit of the Spirit? It's not enough that I have ministry. It's not enough that I go to church and I just pray and read my Bible. Am I actually producing fruit? Because if I'm not producing fruit, God literally says, depart from me, I never knew you. It's by our fruit we're going to be known. And even the other day, I was in a mood, and I was saying to myself, I need to ask myself, am I producing fruit? Do I have patience? Do I have love? Do I have joy? Do I have peace? Do I have kindness? Do I have humility? So I'd encourage you right now to look at yourself and say, God, search me, oh God, and see if there be any wicked way in me. Where am I lacking in the fruit of the Spirit? And feel free, like I've done, is look back on the past 10 weeks videos. If you struggle with love, look at love again. If you struggle with patience, look at patience again. But it's crucial. Everyone nowadays is looking at, it's all about your blessings and your miracles and your harvest. It's all about your destiny and your purpose. But no one really wants to look at the fruit of the Spirit. People want things from God, but nobody wants to change themselves. People watch videos now where it's all about tell me, and I want to watch a video about how I can become rich, how I can be in ministry, how I can preach, how I can teach, how I can become a pastor. People want, now got itching ears because they want to hear these things, but nobody wants to hear about the fruit of the Spirit. No one wants to hear about being more like God. No one needs to hear that they need to love more. They need to have more patience. They need to have more humility. No one wants to hear these things anymore. But this is what God is looking for, and this is what we need. So as we come to the end of this series now, God bless you. I hope this series has blessed you. And I hope this video has blessed you too. And if it has, do feel free to share with other people. And I'm going to now take a well-deserved break after 10 weeks. So pray for me, and I'll see you soon at some point. God bless.